Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are back for another Q&A chat. I'm so excited about today's. Recently, we had Ruth Carter Hickman, who won a Sony Afro Female Grant. And then previously, we had Brittany Janae, who's in the same kind of space as you. And she was talking about her journey. And so we'll get started in a second. I'm going to allow folks to trickle in. Feel free to turn on your camera. It's always nice. Thank you, Bria. But as always, you can leave it off. It's totally cool as well. If you are new, feel free to drop in the chat your location. It's always cool to see where people are tuning in from. And we'll get started in a second. I love it. I just like warm-up stretches. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I did not tell you this, but I have this. I loved this video so much. And I'm gonna play it as I allow folks to trickle in. Just 1 second. Okay.
Is a big day, real big day. This channel is going to get revamped. I am also getting a revamp. And so to celebrate, I'm going to try to create some new headshots, some new portraits of myself, because when you find out that you're an Adobe Creative Resident, you got to change a few things up. You got to switch some stuff up. But I do need to get a few things. So let's get into this. Also, hi, I'm Hallease. Got it. We got it. Safety first. With MailChimp, you can design.
Okay, I'll stop it there. Because Hallease, like, what an intro. I love your videos so much. But welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. For those who may not know you, why don't you start with your background? Before you were an Adobe Creative Resident, where did it all start for you?
Yeah, it depends on how far back you want me to go.
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Because this is Black women photography. So I guess for me, it actually started when I was around 11 or 12 or so. I saved up my chore money and got my first film camera. It was actually the last Nikon camera that they made before things went digital. And so, yeah, I brought that with my chore money and I became the family's unofficial family photographer, taking photos of things. And that is what got me into video. It was sort of a natural progression. And from there, I'm one of those weird people that like found their interest and then went to school for it and graduated in it and is still doing it as an adult. So yeah, I'm one of those people that hasn't really left it. Everything I do is a variation of the thing I learned. So yeah.
And so when you first started diving into the world of video, like how was that for you? What steps did you take? I mean, now like we are the ones who are turning to you and watching your videos for inspiration and learning, but who did you learn from?
I learned from watching movies that I was probably too young to watch, frankly. One of the earliest films that got me into video and telling stories through film in general was what was it? Oh my gosh, The Royal Tenenbaums by Wes Anderson. And I think when that film came out, I was technically 11. And trigger warning, there's things around like suicide and stuff in there as well. So I probably shouldn't have been watching that film, but I did. And I just really loved how different his stuff was compared to other things that I watched. I'm of that generation where you could go to the movies for $5. So my parents would send me to the movies with $10 so I could see 2 movies in a row and they didn't have to like think about me for about 6 hours, you know? So I've always been a big movie person. And I actually ended up, I'm based in San Antonio and I grew up in San Antonio. And I ended up going to a magnet high school that had video production as part of their curriculum. And so I actually got to start to experiment with film and video pretty young in high school. And then that was what led me to realize that I could make it into a career, and go to college for film. Had to convince my parents, typical traditional stuff. I was supposed to be an engineer, a mechanical
Okay, I was
engineer.
gonna say.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, I had to definitely plead my case to not cut funding. Thank you, mom and dad. It worked out in the end. Appreciate y'all. But yeah, I was supposed to be a mechanical engineer. So
Oh my goodness.
sorry.
Okay, so but for those who may not, probably are not, attending a school for filmmaking or film, what advice would you have for them, how they can learn the ropes?
Oh my gosh. I mean, film and video used to be so inaccessible through most of my early career to, I would say, people that, yeah, don't have the funding or capabilities to go to an institution or can't take on the financial risk of just hopping in, and, not bringing in income while they're doing that and going the more vocational route. Now I feel like it's so much easier. You have YouTube, you can watch so many tutorials on YouTube around everything. You have platforms like Skillshare, which I teach on, to kind of get your feet wet in understanding things around lighting and color and all of that. But I would really say utilize the internet. Like the internet has sort of equalized a lot of things, even editing software, now you can get iMovie comes standard on every Mac, I think. And then what is it? Final Cut Pro 10. Like when I was in college, Final Cut Pro 7 was $2,500. And it was a series of 7 discs that you had to load onto your computer over the course of, about 5 or 6 hours. And that was like the inexpensive editing software. Now you can edit things on your phone for free almost, maybe pay $10 for the app or something. So I think it's more easier than ever to get into video and teach yourself video. I think it's more just about having that fortitude to kind of like power through and teach yourself and try.
I completely agree with you. I see some folks, Bria saying SA Unite. That's funny.
Yes, 210 Por Vida, all the way.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. And for folks who are tuning in, of course, anytime you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll ask them along the way. I already received some ahead of the conversation that I plan to ask as well. So when I'm looking at your YouTube channel, man, I mean, there's just so much. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a mess.
No, but it's amazing. There's just so much content, which is like, sometimes as creatives, we struggle with creating content, but for you, it comes naturally. Now you're at 80,000 subscribers, which I'm sure is insane for you to even think about, that 80,000 people are like subscribing to you. Talk to us about this journey with YouTube. Like, how did it start for you? How much, when you first started, like, how much did you decide to share about your own, personal life? Like, I feel like sometimes for me, navigating that waters is like, how much do I share of myself, online, and or video. There's no videos of me besides these. But like for you, like, where did it all begin?
Yeah. So for me, it actually started, I think if you go to the about, you can see like the date, it's at the top. But I think I started the channel in 2009. So quite a ways back. And I started on YouTube as a consumer of the platform. So I had a channel and an account so I could watch other people.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I did that was because I really loved, like for me, again, growing up in San Antonio, it's a minority majority city, but it's very spread out. And the Black community in San Antonio is very spread out across the city because San Antonio is the seventh largest city in the country. It's a pretty big city. And so for me, this was a way to find my Black community online. That was the original reason I started being on YouTube as a consumer. And I got on it to learn about how to take care of my own hair, because this is right around the times of the beginnings of the natural hair movement in the Black community across the world, I would say. So I'm like part of that generation. I had my first set of locks right as I started this channel. And so I was watching people that now don't even talk about hair anymore. Francesca Ramsey, for example, she had locks and was very big on there at the time. Now she's a writer for television, and just others, so that was why I got on. And then as my creative career started to progress, I worked for different video agencies after college and during college. And I just wanted a place to experiment where, it wasn't based on client feedback or anything like that. And so I would just put out little straight to camera vlogs. Like if you go back far enough, you can see me sitting in my dorm apartment 4x3 talking about hair, So yeah, I didn't like take those videos down as it got bigger or anything like that. So people can see the actual true progression of my time on the platform. But yeah, that's really what kept me on, was just a way to try to experiment with different ideas around cinematography and editing, without like potentially getting fired. But for me, I'm an oversharer because I'm very much interested in the human experience. I find a lot of collective understanding when I talk about harder topics, and I talk about topics that usually is not frowned upon in the Black community, but can just not be discussed as much, like women's health, and things like that. So YouTube, first and foremost, is a place for community for me. And then making money off it is like, yay. But that wasn't the reason I was on. The reason I was on was to connect with people.
That's crazy. So I guess for you, like, what was that turning point that really made you like, okay, flip this switch, like I'm gonna do this and actually also make money with this? I mean, when you were doing it for, I guess maybe I should back up. When you were doing it for like the whole passion thing, and when you first started, were you working like as, a job, or doing the whole 9 to 5 life on top of this? Like how did it work?
Yeah. I was, so yeah, again, started in 2009. I didn't start my production company until 2018. So I was working full time for different video agencies, as a producer for them, in like big tech and doing stuff like that. So very dull stuff. But I did that full time until 2018. And the reason I was actually able to quit my full time video agency job and start producing full time on YouTube and starting my own production company was because of YouTube itself. So in 2018, they had a program called Creators for Change. It was their answer to hate speech and xenophobia that was on the platform. And so they gave me and a bunch of other creators around a decent amount. I can't legally say what the number is, but they gave us a nice filmmaking grant essentially to produce content on the platform combating that. And it was a really great opportunity. And with that, plus actually, I got passed up to do the Adobe Residency. I had applied that year and didn't get it. That was the year that Temmie got it. And I was like, they're not going to have two Black people with dreads from Texas. Like, this isn't happening. He's getting it,
Let's get it.
So yeah, Temmie ended up getting it that year. And but Adobe still gave me a grant. And we're like, thanks for applying. We believe in what you're doing. Here's a grant. And I was like, okay. So with those two things, that's how I quit my full-time job and started Stumblewell and was doing YouTube from there. YouTube is still not the way I make the most money, though. I make a decent amount of money on it from AdSense, and I can tell you that. I make about $1,000 a month in ads from YouTube. But the bulk of how I make money is now the residency. That's a salaried job, which is great. And then also I teach on Skillshare, and I make around 12 to 15, almost $2,000 on that. And then traditional client work as well. So they hire me to film and tell their own story. So yeah.
I mean, you say that so casually, but that is amazing. Like that is so impressive.
I always want to make
Uh,
sure people understand where the money actually comes from, because people will see like,
yeah.
oh, you got so many subscribers, you roll it, and it's like, no, babe.
No, no, I mean that is really good point because followers does not equal money.
It does
Um,
not.
I completely agree, and I'm glad you made that point for people to understand. Yes, you see someone just said, "I appreciate that information," because people don't talk money. That is so true. So thank you for your transparency with that. I guess my next question then, because prior to even just, becoming full-time with your creative content, at what point did you start, thinking, okay, I actually really have to be in all these different hats? Like you said, Skillshare, you said, then you also have your personal client work, and then the YouTube work. Like, what point did you feel like that was necessary? And how do you then be able to create time for yourself to just do even personal work that you may not even see?
Yeah. What is personal work that nobody sees? Great question. I don't think I've actually had any of that for at least 4 or 5 years. Most of the work I do ends up
Okay.
being commissioned in some way.
Okay.
And that's the way it gets made. Thankfully, I try to pitch things that I want to do.
Mhm.
So that helps. Um, but you said the question was, how did I know to diversify, or?
Yeah, because I think we're so focused on just like owning that one thing, right? Like we're always
Mm,
told you have to be good at one thing, that we
yeah.
sometimes don't feel like, okay, what point do we actually diversify? What point is it okay? We enjoy multiple things to do those multiple things, right? Like you're also great at teaching, so you're doing stuff with Skillshare. Like at what point did you make that, point to navigate these different waters?
I think for me, it's probably like, not to belittle it, but like I like living and eating indoors. So I felt like I I think being a freelancer, it's kind of just inherent that you feel like you can't rely on one main source of income, because you never know when that income is going to go away. And the panorama has really reinforced that for me. Um, and so, yeah, I've always tried to be doing multiple things, even when, again, I had a full-time 9 to 5 video agency job. I had little side clients and other stuff like that. Um, and I don't know, it's like hard to explain, because it's just like my general mindset is to have many eggs in one basket. Uh, yeah, because yeah, I don't know. I
Oh, I
just
mean,
do.
that's completely fair and okay as well. Liliana asks, what are some of the adjustments you've had to implement during the panini to keep things sailing smoothly?
Yeah. I actually made a whole video of it on my channel. I
Yeah.
think it's called like How I Survived the Panorama as an Artist or something like that.
Like,
But the main thing, I applied to a lot of grants and very, very low interest to no interest loans. And I think a lot of artists forget to think about themselves as this, like, you are a business, even if you're just one person. And so even if you're a single member LLC or whatever you call yourself, like, you are a business and you can apply to business grants and business loans. You can do that. So the thing I did was I ended up getting two different loans, like the PPP loan. I was in the first round that applied for that, got it. And it was like, oh, I'm sorry, it's a borderline no interest loan to pay myself. Amen. So I did that. And I applied for round two and got round two as well for the company. And then I also applied for what is it called? Lift Fund. Yes, Lift Fund. That popped up, and that's all around the southern United States. They're in multiple states. And I applied my company to that as well and got that. And that was a grant, not a loan. So that was cool. But that's really how I kept the company going, was all of those things. And then I really dug deep into Patreon as well. Um, I will say that for me, it was a double-edged sword with Patreon, because I'd always had one, but then the reason why people started coming was because George Floyd died. And so it was, to be frank, I think it was a lot of like white guilt tears money, which, at the end of the day, you're getting paid for your creativity, which is cool. But, I feel like most Black people, you can kind of feel like, why does somebody have to die for you to value my work now? You know? So I still struggle with that. But my Patreon grew significantly that year as well. And so, yeah, all of those things collectively, along with I got a big opportunity with YouTube as well that year, is how I kept things going through the Panini Press. But I took a pay cut for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
No, I mean, thank you for your honesty. I see some sides in the chat.
Bruh.
Because
Yeah.
I experienced that too, and I'm sure several others in here have experienced that. So I totally understand. Because it really is unfortunate. I think yeah, Mercy says, I've been wrestling with that feeling of being used, but hey, so I guess, that question then, like, I would have for you then relating to that is like, especially last year, like you were saying, all these brands, all these, folks coming out of the woodworks, ready to support. How did you, decide what to actually say yes to? Like, because, not all money is good money. So like, did you turn things down and how did you approach that? Navigating that.
Yeah. I mean, everything's an exchange, right? So for me, with every opportunity I got, I tried to see it more as balancing that idea of like a means to an end versus, okay, what can I bring into the space to change the narrative or have a deeper conversation than just like, we need to do stuff, you know? So yeah, frankly, I really only said yes to like one thing that I feel like was directly tied to George Floyd, which was the YouTube Bear Witness Take Action thing that I did at the end of last year. Um, that project, I actually knew I had a good story to tell with that project. And so for me, it was an exciting moment to interview my own family and tie that into where the country is right now. For those of you who don't know, in the documentary, it's a short documentary, I interview 3 generations of my family. So I have archival footage of me interviewing my grandmother and my grandfather. And then I interviewed my mom and dad, who, most of our parents probably lived through desegregation, and they're both from Virginia. And then I also touch on my generation, which, we've been living through all sorts of craziness. And then I tap into the future generation with my nephew, who at the time was like 3 years old. So yeah, I was like, I can actually tell a
Incredible.
whole story with this rather than like, hey guys, I'm the token one here,
Mhm.
So I think it's just about knowing when you can have a true authentic story to tell and then say yes to that, for sure.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. I'm gonna go try and find that and look that up because that's really impactful. There's a question in the chat from Bria. How did you find your voice as a filmmaker slash content creator? And how did you figure out what you wanted to say with your work?
Yeah, good question, Bria. Thanks. A+ question. Really thought provoking. It's to the meat and the heart of the matter. I am stalling while I think about answering
Love
it.
it.
Yeah, no. So I love that it's in the chat so I can like read it. I be getting off topic, y'all. So rein me in. Yeah, I think the way I found my voice was honestly by trying to imitate people and figuring out my own story from that. So, again, like Wes Anderson was a big influence for me pretty early on in my like exposure to film. And so something I would do sometimes when I would be coming up with vlog ideas, I'd think, I'm just going to go out and film in what I feel is the style of Wes Anderson. And what ended up usually happening was I stumbled into my own unique way to tell a story or how to film and so on and so forth. And so, I think imitation is the highest form of flattery. Obviously, don't like recreate entire scenes verbatim, that's just straight up plagiarism. Don't do that. But I think pulling influence from other people or trying to figure out how you can see a piece of artwork that you like and turn it into a moving picture. I try to do that a lot, which usually helps me figure out a new style. Um, in regards to what I wanted to say, a lot of times it was just, I keep thinking about this a lot and I want to talk about it and I don't really know how. So I'm just going to film things and write an essay and see how those two, like my voiceover and the image, marry together. I do that a lot in my channel. Well, back now I'm like sponsored at the wazoo, so I don't really get to make a lot of experimental crazy stuff anymore. But before, yeah, I would just do that a lot. It'd be things that were just like on my spirit, and I use film as a way to work through it. I should probably go to therapy, like actually pay somebody to figure it out, but instead I use my channel and work through things in a public space, which is probably not the best thing to do, but here we are. So
But I mean, I feel like that's also probably therapeutic for you. So
yeah, I enjoy it. It's
it
fun,
works.
but I should probably do some stuff offline.
I'm gonna go back to your channel, and I'd love for you to like take us to one of these videos that you made, like, and just talk about the process from start to finish, from the idea that you have, and then actually getting it on YouTube. Like, from like, how does it work? What's your like post process as well? Like,
Oh
um,
Lord.
I know. Tell me which one to go to, and I'll go to it.
Mm. You want me to do what now? Hold up.
Just walk us through the process, like a day on set or in creation, like with you. Like, what is it like? How do we go from idea to published video?
Got it. Got it. Got it. I guess you could do on the subject of oversharing, the
Mhm.
feeling lost and alone one, where it looks like I'm in the woods with a backpack.
This one?
Yeah. You can play that on mute while I guess I talk.
Okay.
Oh, and I wish I'd turn the ads off so I don't have to sit through that. Go ahead and skip the ad, man. But
Can I help you?
nah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Um, yeah, so with this one, I wanted to make a video. Every year I try to make a video where I recap what the year was for me.
Mhm.
Um, and with this one, I just did this voiceover in the beginning where I'm like, I kind of didn't know where I was, what I was doing for the first time in a long time. I didn't know which way to go and stuff like that. And so this is actually shot in, Bria's gonna know, this is shot in Brackenridge Park here in San Antonio. Um, and so I recorded that voiceover first. And then at that time, I was already going to the park a lot just to like get
Mhm.
out of the apartment because I've always worked from home, even when I had a full-time video agency job.
Mhm.
So I just kind of went there and experimented with how I would set up the shots to look lost and alone. And then from there, you see, I snap my fingers and I go through sort of a highlight reel of everything I did that year. And this is all content I pulled back from throughout the year of different vlogs I had created and stuff like that. I was also finishing up a PBS show, which was very stressful, which is partially what the vlog's about. So yeah, from there, the video becomes pretty much just a basic vlog of me just making points about the 5 to 10 major things I learned through that year. And some of it is around just like realizing that I needed to get back on birth control because my hormones were just so out of whack that I was like not truly comprehending what people were saying in meetings correctly. To simple things like, oh, marriage is hard, even when the person's great. Damn. So, it's a variety of things. Uh, but I would say overall, the video took maybe a day to film and another day to edit. And then I posted it.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for that. And so when it's now ready to post, like, do you ever, especially when there's like the personal ones, like, do you ever get like nervous? Like, when you put these things out on the world, like, is there any of that for you?
I do. Yeah, I do get nervous sometimes. But I don't know if like I don't say it, then who's gonna say it,
Mhm.
If I don't talk about it, then who's gonna talk about it? I just really lean on that. And I've yet to ever post a video that was just like, I don't even know, not way off, or that someone was just like, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I feel like a lot of people are in search of similar connections. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's not hard for me to just be like, I almost got divorced. Let's talk about it. Again, I should probably go to therapy. So Yeah.
Um, Bashira, please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong. As if was this self shot? Because I've been filming myself so much during this pandemic. I'm tired of filming myself.
Yeah, I usually 9 times out of 10 am filming by myself, and I'm setting up the shot myself and then going into frame and
Mhm.
all of that. So yeah, unless there's like budget, most of it is self shot.
Thank you. And I guess technicalities, when it comes to, producing things for yourself by yourself, what's your go-to gear? How do you make it work and make it so, smooth and how did you better your workflow when it comes to producing that?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say is script out your work as much as you can. And you don't need to overthink it and have like
Mhm.
a traditional film script, like that's too much. But I definitely go into most projects at least with an outline of what I want to make sure I say. So that way I'll be doing the talk to camera part and just have my phone up, with Notes app or Google Keep, and like what are the main points I want to make sure I hit. And then I'll speak for a little while, check my notes. I didn't say that one quite as well. Say it again, edit myself later, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
I also will do some basic shot list things of like, so again, with that stuff in the woods, I definitely in my doc had like, get a foot shot, get this, get it medium, get it wide, get it, like I kind of do break down the shots a little bit. And I find that by doing that, then on set, you can have time to actually have some creativity and be like, well, actually, wait, hold on. I want to get like this moss in a weird way. Um, but you still have good coverage. So that's what I do. In regards to gear, I'm not going to scare y'all, but again, just a reminder, I have a production company. This is my livelihood. So you don't need this. But like what y'all are looking at me on now is the Sony FX3. That's my go-to cinematography camera now. Don't buy that. It's like a $5,000 camera. Don't buy that. But that's what I use. And then I also have the A7 III. I also have the A7C. And I used to have an A6500, but once I got the FX3, I
Mhm.
sold that one. So I'm mostly Sony. Um, I have these little light panels. That's what I'm on right now, are these like plastic
Nice.
light panels. I got them from like Amazon. They're pretty inexpensive considering what they are. Maybe they're like $500 for two, and you get
Mhm.
the stands and everything to go with them. What else? I do have a couple lenses. I have the Tamron knockoffs of Sony because Sony real proud of their glass, man. So I have Tamron knockoffs that I think are great that get the job done. But each one's around 600-700 bucks. So I also have the Sony ZV-1. It's a little point and shoot thing. That's like $1,000. So like, don't be buying all this stuff. I've accumulated over the course of like 10 years. And then this microphone is the Rode USB NTG. And this is what I use for mostly just doing this talking on
There's a
Zoom.
lot of compliments about that mic in the chat.
I know a lot of people love the mic. It's $100 microphone. You can get it off Amazon, B&H, Best Buy. It's everywhere. It's a very popular mic for live stream and stuff like that. What else? I have a gimbal as well. What's it called? DJI Ronin. I had the first one, the Ronin S. I have that. But a lot of times, if you just hold your camera to your body, and make it taut across your neck, then you can more or less be pretty gimbal-esque. So I only bust out the Ronin for paid content creation work. I don't just bust it out just to bust it out because it's kind of a
Mhm.
hassle. Um, yeah, I have a
No,
lot of
thank you.
stuff,
No,
but
but thank you. Like you said, it's all an investment, your business, and also over a 10-year period. So don't
yes,
get stressed, y'all. That
don't.
matters. The
Please don't.
context matters. So thank you for that breakdown. I'm gonna go to this question in the chat and then I'm gonna switch gears for a little bit. Liliana has another question. You mentioned oversharing, and I've been definitely struggling with an excess of that in my work lately. Do you have any tips when it comes to setting boundaries for yourself while tackling personal subjects?
The thing I often do is I actually learned this when I was doing a video for Haven for Hope, which is a homeless shelter here in San Antonio that does a lot of great work. I was talking to one of the leaders there, and they said something to me I felt was so impactful, and I've always kind of kept this in the back of my mind with my YouTube channel. Is with every video I make before I hit upload or before I hit live, it's like, who have I harmed and who have I helped by
Mm.
making this video? And so as long as I am not harming anyone, but I am helping someone, then that's my check that the video is good and worth sharing. And that's my boundary. So, again, I talk about a lot of hard topics around women's health or, relationships and how that can be a struggle. But I always make sure that, like, am I talking about this in a way that's going to help someone potentially who's also going through it? You're not usually going to see me get on my YouTube channel and just like, here's why people are trash, I'm just not going to do that because there's enough of that. There's
Right.
enough of that on YouTube. So that's like at the core of everything I do. Even if the video is kind of silly, then it's like, hopefully I help somebody laugh.
Mm.
Hopefully I help somebody just let go of some tension for a day, whatever it needs to be. But who have I harmed and who have I helped is like something I live by across like
So
all everything.
beautiful. No, I love that. That is profound. Thank you. And yes, people agree in the chat. I want to go back to in the beginning, I started this with oh, I see a lot of hearts. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I hope, if you are not already using some type of like exercise, maybe that is a great thing that you can take away and start practicing for your own methods. So thank you for that.
Yeah, steal
Um,
it. Go. Take it.
I want to go back to so in the beginning I started with the Adobe Creative Residency, your great tease, your great intro talking about the announcement of being accepted. For those who may have missed it, when you first applied, you did not get accepted. I mean, you still got a grant from them, but you were not accepted. What
Yeah.
made you want to apply again? And then talk us about the process of just like, okay, realizing, okay, rejected this time, how did you differentiate your application for the next time around? And just any other general advice you may have on how to stand out through this application process.
Yeah. Ooh, good question. Yeah, so I applied in 2018, didn't get it. I think my original idea in 2018, frankly, wasn't bad, but it
Mhm.
also didn't like really align with where Adobe was at the time as well. So that's something I would say too, is like, just because you don't get accepted into a program the first time you apply doesn't necessarily mean that your application wasn't strong. It's just with bigger companies like Adobe, they'll have community guidelines and metrics that are from the way top, when they're like, for the next year we're focusing on
Mhm.
stuff in this field. And so you can have a great idea, but if it doesn't align, then they're just not going to pick it. It's not because it's not good. And that, I think that's more or less what happened to me. I really wanted to launch at the time I was really into wanting to travel more. And I think I called it Black and Abroad. I wanted to show more about someone who's Black or brown traveling and moving through different spaces and how that might be different from our white counterparts,
Mhm.
especially around that time. Travel influencers were really getting big. And I was just like, I would watch some of those videos and just be like, that is not how people that look like me would do that, So I really wanted to like showcase that, but that's an expensive idea. That's an expensive idea to execute. And also at that point in my career, I hadn't shown, even though I had the skill set and talent to do it, I hadn't shown truly at an Adobe scale and level what I could do.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I made it all the way through the interview process. This was before the panorama. So I didn't get flown out. And that was how I knew. It was like, oh, okay, I didn't get it because I haven't gotten the flown out part yet. And they would have flown me out by now. So yeah.
Mhm.
But the way I got it this time was, I think I really, I mean, again, interesting stuff in the wake of everything that's happened over the last year and a half. But I think one of the reasons I got it is because usually it's a global program. This year is relegated to the United States only.
Mhm.
So just a smaller pool in general of people applying. A lot of people that usually get it are from abroad, and they're usually from countries that prioritize the arts and creativity in making a full-time living anyway.
Mhm.
So like Germany, for example, you can apply to the government and be like, I'm a YouTuber, and they'll support you until you get to a point where you can support yourself on YouTube. So like they value the
Oh,
art, you know what I mean? The
yeah,
artist
yeah.
differently than we do in the United States. So I think that was a factor. One, two, I just had more experience by then. Frankly, to be perfectly honest with y'all, I'm probably one of the oldest residents that have ever happened with Adobe. Usually they want you at around 26 to 28 based on where you're at in your career. You know, I turned 31 this year. So I'm technically overqualified, I would probably say at this point. But they picked me because my project is a shift into a different side of my career that would put me at about where a 26 to 28-year-old is in their career. So I think that's also another reason why I was a good candidate. I would also say the big thing to do is just really be good at explaining your idea succinctly and in a longer drawn out way. My whole creative residency project, aside from the budget that I pitched to them, is on my Behance for anyone to see. That's usually something that the residents will do. And I did it as well. I can throw it in the chat for y'all to look at.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, but you can see the entire, aside from the budget again, because that's legally, they don't want you to show that. But yeah, you can see my whole project, what I pitched, how I pitched it, what it looks like. Yeah, just be really focused on what your transition is and what need you're trying to fill. And then also be very candid about how it's going to benefit you too, aside from like, yeah, you're getting a salary and this and that and third, whatever, you know. How is it going to benefit your career? Be able to articulate that really, really well. And just get used to pitching yourself a lot to people, you know. That's something I've had to do a lot. So at this point, it came pretty naturally.
I think this is super helpful. If anyone has any questions more on that, feel free to drop it in the chat. They do have a monthly program as well where you can apply to like do a community project, or they assign you a project, and that has been shared in our Slack several times. So do also apply for that if you're not already going to apply for the creative residency. And thank you for sharing the link. I will drop that link in the chat as in our Slack as well for those who want to check out your application more. Excuse me. I see that we're almost coming up close to time. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We have about 15 more minutes with Hallease. And this has been such a great conversation so far. I want to ask you another question relating to just like oversharing, and similar to what Lily, I think it was Liliana who asked about setting boundaries. Did that also, I guess, change in how you navigate social media, and just also setting those boundaries online when, you know, people who probably never met you, but they probably feel like they know you because of your YouTube content. Does that change at any point for you, or is it about the same?
It's definitely changed. I be blocking people like, like I'm not afraid to block people anymore on YouTube specifically and Instagram as well. Yeah. I also am not on everything. I'm on YouTube and Instagram. I think those are the two main ways to find me, but like I dust off Twitter. I'm like, what is over here? Like once a quarter, because and it's usually because like YouTube's promoting something I'm doing and I'll hop on there to like retweet it, and then it's not on my phone, you know. I just got TikTok on my phone like a month ago, and I don't have an account on it. It's just so that when people send me TikToks, I can watch it. So, but I'm not like just on it, you know. I'm very selective about what takes up space in my life because it's my job to be on these things. So I have to have very clear like separations of, and now I'm on it to post and I'm gone. I miss having a Google Pixel phone. YouTube was passing out pixels for a minute. It was amazing. I miss it. But I used to have a Google Pixel, and something they had that was really cool on their phones was focus mode. I know Apple just did it. I'm back to iPhone, but I know Apple just did it as well, but it's not as good because with the Google Pixel one, you could turn it on and it would literally black out apps. So you couldn't open it at all until until a set time. Whereas, you know, with iPhone, it doesn't black it out. It just doesn't let notifications come through on it. So my phone stayed on focus mode for like an entire year and a half at one point, just so I could focus, you know? Yeah. I think the big thing is like to set boundaries and parameters around like what you're going to do and when you're going to post. So something I've done is like for a year when I was trying to grow on Instagram, I was like, okay, I'm going to post at 5. I'm going to type everything out on another thing, get on, post it, engage for like 10 minutes on other people's stuff. And then for a while I would like delete the whole app. So like every time I would have to like re-download it and then come back on, sign in, do the thing. Having those like clear breaks, I think is
Mhm.
like really, really important. So
And and this is the perfect transition with this important question from Lauren. They ask, what is your process for managing your time throughout the week across all of the work you do, YouTube, Skillshare, commissions, etc., while making sure to get what you need to get done and not overextending yourself? Talk to us about this time management.
yeah, what an amazing A+ question. Once again, beautiful, really thought-provoking, thorough questions in this group. I love it. Just like, wow. um, yeah, I think the short answer is I don't, but I'm working on it. It's a ever evolving process. Something that I think, unfortunately, a lot of times to learn where your breaking point is, you have to surpass it. You know what I mean? To define it.
Right.
So for me in 2019, I was working on a show for PBS, and that was how I discovered like all of my breaking points with that show. So I do have moments of sprinting. Like right now, currently, I'm in a moment of sprinting because Adobe's got a lot of stuff coming out that I need to work on and get done, and I've got commission things that I need to do. But I always now make sure to know like there will be a clear end point to this sprint. This is not an
Mhm.
indefinite sprint. So by the end of October, I know the sprint's done. You know what I mean? So I think knowing that about your work is really important. The other thing I do is I use Trello. I use Trello a lot to manage projects and know where things are, especially with like YouTube. I'll create a Trello board that's like the idea and then move that idea into like I'm filming it and then move that into I'm editing it, move that into create promotional materials, like stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing I used to do was I used an app called Notability on my iPad where I would use the method of just like um, organizing things by what was most important. So like in the A slot, it was like only 3 things, the most important 3 things that need to get done for the week. And then B slot, these are like secondary important, C slot, secondary important. And that's how I stayed on task to not get so bogged down in some like little minute detail that frankly doesn't matter. It can be like pushed off for like 3 months and it won't matter still. So I do that a lot too. The other thing is I have a partner. My husband's a Taurus, so he's very much like 6 o'clock. We're having dinner together. It's only a handful of times that I've ever like not had dinner with my husband at 6 o'clock. Even if it's I have to stop to have dinner with him and then come back to work, there are definite like parameter breaks that I have to abide by that are good that I have because I am a workaholic. So I don't know, get married to somebody who's very grounded. I don't know. I don't know. I think
Note
that'll
to
help you
self.
out.
No, thank you for that. Someone says, say hello to Mr. Hallease.
Yeah, he's left. He's in the kitchen doing something. Toros, like he's probably having lunch right now. So there you go.
I love it. Uh, Going to some of the other questions in the chat. Berea asked, have you ever thought about moving to other more quote unquote creative cities such as LA or New York? As working from San Antonio, a city not really nationally recognized for its creativity, slowed you down in any way?
Yes and no, it has, and then it also hasn't. So yes, I don't know if y'all know, but I'm in Texas. Texas is a mess for a lot of different reasons right now. I've been having one foot out of the door with this state for a minute, but yeah, I've been considering moving to California more seriously for the past about year and a half. We'll see. My budget ain't set up for these California cost of living prices though, so
I
we'll
feel
see.
you on that.
Yeah. That's like one of the few things I think San Antonio and Texas has going from it. You can have a really great quality of life for not too much money. So that's the struggle, man. That's the struggle. But I I think it's harmed and it's helped my career at the same time. When I was in my undergrad, I actually went to LA and worked in LA for a semester as part of my undergrad, and interned out there. But LA is really tough. LA is a hard place to be poor. Again, San Antonio, it's okay to be semi-poor here because you can have a decent go of it. Whereas LA, it's like every hour on the hour, you're just like, damn, I'm broke, like it's hard out there. But with a city like LA or a place that has like so many other artists, you become a bit of a dime a dozen. That was what I learned from being out there, even though I had a lot of skill set. If you don't have really strong connections in the industry that you're trying to get in, it's just really hard to break in. And so I did my semester in LA, flew my black ass back to Texas because at that point I'd already made a lot of really strong connections from my undergraduate degree. So getting opportunities was a little bit of a lighter lift. At the time I was in Austin, I wasn't in San Antonio. So from there, I think being a big fish in a small pond, quote unquote, can be really helpful because I just smaller market, easier, And I also think I got more stronger opportunities because the market was smaller. I think I rose up a lot faster than if I had just tried to stay in LA and make it work. Now, if I went to LA, I've gotten so many more connections that span across the board. I'd probably be okay, probably be rough for like a year or two, but I'd be fine. But again, it's like quality of life is the big thing for me. LA is, once you have to hit a pretty high threshold for it to not suck and for people to want to work with you, not because they're trying to take from you, but because they just genuinely are interested in collaborating. Whereas in a state like Texas, living in Austin or San Antonio, people have the way that they're making a living and they truly want to collaborate with you because of just art for art's sake, which can be a lot of great growth of collaborating across instead of trying to collaborate, up, which a lot of people try to do. So there's no
Points
right
were
or wrong
made.
way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good points. Thank you for answering that question. I see some folks relating to that in the chat. Here's a question from Jessica asking, how often do you post content where you are the subject to keep that personal engagement with your audience?
I try to post once a week on YouTube. I try. When I was really good about it, I was doing about 6 videos a month, so almost twice a week.
Wow. Okay. And I guess, for folks who may be starting out or just new to the space, would you recommend the more videos in the beginning to build that audience? Yeah. Or no?
Do you define what consistency is for you and where you're at in your life, period.
Mhm.
So if you can do twice a week, cool. If you can do once bi-weekly, then that's you. Like you have to figure out what you can sustain. That's the
Mhm.
big thing. Be sustained in how you do it.
Oh, what a gem. Like, yes, I love that. Yes, Avarius, that's powerful, be sustained. I mean, so many good drops in here. Regina asks, since you have this residency, what's next for you after it? Have you thought about that yet?
Yeah, the goal is to try to convert Stumblewell truly into a full-time creative production company. So not really taking on traditional client work anymore if we don't want to.
Mm.
Um, and I also want to break into television a little bit, whether that be on YouTube itself, like doing scripted shows, or actually like producing a show for Netflix or something like that. Try to have that be like the blanket thing that pays most of my work, but then I can still do YouTube and other things. And again, have that face on face
That
connection
would
with
be
people.
amazing and such a natural transition. I love that. Yes, proceed with our praise hands. A few more final questions for you before we wrap up. You kind of already mentioned this, but Liliana wants to know, are there any tips on keeping it moving after a proposal rejection or just any type of rejection, whether it's grants or whatever? How do you, I guess, find that motivation to even try again?
Mm. Sometimes for me, it's more like, again, I like living and eating indoors. So I just power through, man. That's the big thing for me. And just because a mentor of mine told me a no is just a not yet, usually most of the time. Uh, and just because someone says no to you doesn't mean you're not good at what you do. You're just not a good fit for them. That's it. So I think it's more about finding who you're a good fit for and leaning into that as much as possible. But sometimes I get a proposal that doesn't work out, and then I gotta have a glass of wine and take a nap. And I've been rejected a lot. When you get to this point in your career, you get rejected all the time. So like the yeses or the no's started becoming maybes like a year ago. And the maybes have like turned into yeses like 6 months ago. So it's
Yes,
still pretty fresh.
that's amazing. One last question in the chat. Elsie asks, can you talk a little bit about your collaboration project with Evelyn?
Yeah, so part of my residency is producing a 5-part comedy web series on my YouTube channel, and that's my way to kind of show potentially bigger networks what I'm capable of doing when the budget is very limited, self-funded. I asked Evelyn to co-create the series with me. I'm the executive producer, so I've set aside about 15,000 of my own dollars to produce this pilot and extended trailer. And from there, hopefully we can crowdfund to get the rest of it going. But it's about two HR secretaries doing everything but their jobs and trying to plan a diversity, equity, and inclusion symposium. Evelyn's one of the secretaries. I'm the temp. Hilarity ensues. Racial microaggressions abound in a funny haha kind of way.
I just dropped a link in the chat. If you haven't checked it out, you should. Like I will so let me share my screen and show you guys a little bit of it. It is amazing. Let me go back to the beginning.
I'm not gonna wait because I am told it is bad to wait. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you so much for joining me and a friend, a colleague, a buddy, if you will. We're gonna bring her on to introduce herself, and then we will do some things. So here we go. Evelyn, how do I bring, there we go.
Hey y'all, what's good? Happy Monday evening. It's your girl Evelyn from the internets, aka EVE, aka Kenny with the slowest smile time, aka your Leo babe.
Yes.
I'll stop it there. I mean, you guys have just such great chemistry. So it's perfect. Yes, Marcy agrees. Well, we're coming close to time, y'all. I guess I'll ask you any just like final advice you may have for the creators in this room, for the Black women photographers in this room.
I think my biggest advice would be really just try to start where you're at. A lot of times I'll tell people, they'll look at where I'm at in my career and be like, you've got it all. But I always try to tell people the problems and insecurities you have, as you get better, they will graduate and get better with you. So I still have issues that I still have to work through. I still think about things. I still have to work through having a scarcity mindset a lot, even though on the outside it may look like I'm at a certain amazing point in my career. So just remember that, yeah, as you inevitably grow and inevitably get better, your struggles will inevitably grow and get better with you. And that's the struggle as well. The other thing is like, yeah, try to collaborate across as much as you can. A lot of y'all talk about Evelyn and all the chemistry we have together. I met her back when we were both at UT together in our undergrad. And even though she's a much bigger YouTuber than I am, I've always collaborated with her in regards to filling a need that she has in her channel. So think about how you can serve other people in your creativity too, because that can really help you out. And just because you think you're small pickings doesn't mean the person you're collaborating with thinks you are. So again, Evelyn is a significantly bigger channel than me. I think she's in the 300,000 range, but she hates filming. hates it with a passion. So a lot of times I am her cinematographer. You know, we collaborated on things because I had a drone and she didn't feel like flying one. So, you know, just figure out ways that you can collaborate across and have a loose definition of what across actually is. Apply to things. Don't like talk yourself out of it before you even apply. Because even if you get a no, you might get a grant, you might get something else, you know?
Did
So
y'all hear that? Say that again, please.
don't talk yourself out of applying to things. That's such a big thing I see a lot of people do, is that, myself included, talk themselves out of applying to things. Like, just go for it, man. The worst they say is no. And when you think about that, the worst someone can say to you is no, then it's like, well, fuck that. Who cares? You know, just do it. So sorry, I don't know if we're supposed to cuss or not, but yeah.
No, you're good. Your honesty is so appreciative. Thank you so much. This was so inspiring and refreshing. And I see a lot of folks saying that yes, good, apply, good. I mean, we have this channel in our Slack, Jobs and Grants. I'm always dropping things in there. I'm like, wow, are you guys actually applying? Because yes, that's the worst that could happen. And it's a no if you don't. And a lot of things can come out of it, even maybe a grant from other ways. So thank you so much for your time and your energy. Thank you. And I see all the folks in the chat saying thank you as well. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all. I'm going to drop her links in our chat, in our Slack. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye,
All right,
everyone.
see y'all later. Thank you again.